Guys, Friday the 13th actually came along because of the recent success of Halloween, which came out 2 years earlier. Halloween did a lot of good box office for very little money, so a lot of production companies pretty much wanted to follow that and create their own slasher icon. With that, they created Friday the 13th, and for me personally, one thing I really liked about this movie was it was slightly different than other slasher movies in that it was more of a whodunit. So normally with slasher movies, you have your slasher villain, you have Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, the Candyman, etc. You know who your killer is. In the first Friday the 13th, the killer was not known until maybe the third act of the movie. So you don't see the killer at all. Generally with the killer, we follow them through POV shots. They're in the woods, they're stalking people, things like that. So you don't actually know who the killer is. You know about Camp Blood, which is Camp Crystal Lake, and you do know some bad things have happened there. So if anything, the camp itself is the main villain, and there's something in the camp that's killing people off one by one. Personally, I find that a really interesting way of making this movie different from Halloween. Yes, there are of course similarities, there's a lot of death, there's teenagers, they're getting killed left, right and centre. So there are a lot of similarities, and people very much know that Friday the 13th was there just a copycat of the success of Halloween. Saying that though, it does have its good traits. So the characters in this movie I very much enjoyed. I forgot until I watched this movie how much I actually really liked the characters in this. The other Friday the 13th, yes, they have great characters, but what I've always noticed is they are stereotypes. So in every Friday the 13th, you generally have, the jock, you have the pretty girl, the nerdy girl, the slutty girl, you have the nerdy boy, you might have the rebel or the punk. There's always stereotypes in these movies. With this movie, I noticed the kids were a lot different, so they were more like just regular people. So it was just regular teenagers going to a camp because they were going to be counselors, and unfortunately one by one they get slaughtered. Now don't get me wrong, the teenagers in this movie, they do act in similar ways to other teenagers in other Friday the 13th movies. They're smoking weed, they're playing pranks, they're playing games, but in this movie it all felt a lot more innocent than the others. With the characters themselves, you also didn't really know who was the final girl until a good bit into the movie. So that brings me to my next positive about this movie. There are a lot of red herrings in the movie. So throughout the movie, you never really know, as I said, who is the killer, but you're always kind of guided in thinking it's this person or it's that person. There's also a lot of jump scares that don't really involve the main killer. There's one in particular where there's a snake in a cabin that I think was just thrown into the movie halfway through production. Again, because they wanted to differentiate it from Halloween itself. Another great red herring in the movie is the character of Annie. Similar to how we're introduced to Laurie Strode, she's this kind of, good girl. She talks about how her dream is to look after kids, she loves cooking, etc. She's going to be the cook in the cabin itself. And we immediately kind of jump onto her going, okay, so she will be the final girl. This is the character we are clearly going to root for. She even meets the townspeople at the start of the movie, which is a great way of explaining Camp Blood. So she asks them, do you guys know where Camp Crystal Lake is? And they're all kind of like, please turn around, don't go to that camp, you'll regret it. There's even a super creepy paranoid man that's constantly coming up to the kids. His name is Ralph, I think, in the movie.
You're going to Camp Blood, ain't you?
God damn it, Ralph, get out of here. Go on, get. Leave people alone.
You'll never come back again.
Oh, shut up, Ralph.
It's got a death curse.
That's constantly what he repeats in the movie. So we're introduced to her kind of as this person that just explains what the movie is going to be about, what Camp Blood is, and immediately we feel comfortable with her. Unfortunately, 10-15 minutes into the movie, she gets killed off. So it's a great way of setting up this kind of tension and this paranoia that you don't actually know who is going to survive through the entire movie. Speaking of her death, that does bring me to the practical effects in this movie. We have amazing practical effects for the kills. Number one, yes, the kills are absolutely brilliant, but how they're done and how they're created makes the whole movie, in my opinion. So funny enough, guys, because the kills are so gory in this movie, Friday the 13th Part 2 were actually asked to monitor how they do their kills and actually had to cut lots of their movie out because of this one. Like I said, the character of Annie is one of the first few of the counsellors to get killed off in this movie. Her kill, you know, it's a basic kind of just slashing of the throat, but the way it's done is incredible in this movie. How they do it, looking back at it today, it holds up very, very well. We also have things, you know, like there's an axe to the face where one of the characters literally has an axe stuck to her face, and it looks so intense, it looks so real. I love that kill in the movie. We also had a very famous Kevin Bacon scene. So Kevin Bacon started his career, I think, in this movie himself. So he was very young in the movie, and he just kind of plays a boyfriend of one of the characters, but his kill has pretty much been shown everywhere by horror fans. It's pretty much renowned as one of the best kills in all of the Friday movies, but that never really stops throughout the whole movie. So the kills, they do come one after the other, and they're constantly great. There's not a single kill I can think of in this movie that I don't personally like, except for the very two counsellors at the start of the movie. They show a scene where these two counsellors are murdered. That's the only scene that's not really gory or interesting, but I do think they set it up to give people a false sense of hope of not knowing what's coming next. And moving on from the kills to the person doing the killing, the killer in this movie, who we don't actually meet until the third act. So as I said, throughout the movie you don't really know who the killer is. You're constantly wondering, is it this person, is it that person? Well, in the third act we find out it's Pamela Voorhees, who's the mother of the now iconic Jason Voorhees, who we didn't really know much about at that time.
How are you? Well, I'm Mrs. Voorhees, an old friend of the Christies.
So for me, guys, and this is probably a very controversial choice to say here, Pamela Voorhees is my favourite killer in the Friday the 13th series. I've never been a huge Jason fan. I've always kind of just seen him as a bit of a walking zombie, especially in the later movies, whereas Pamela Voorhees, I found, number one, she added a lot more character to the story itself, a lot more plot, you know, a lot more backstory, and all of her scenes I find are a lot more interesting than Jason in general. So we're first introduced to Pamela Voorhees during the final act of the movie, when pretty much all of the teenagers are dead. We have our final girl Alice, who runs outside. She meets this woman outside, you know, this lovely friendly old lady in this Jeep. She runs to her asking for help. Immediately once you meet her, you know there's something not right about this woman, and bit by bit you do start seeing her demeanour change. So she starts off this lovely sweet lady, but as she reveals she is the mother of Jason Voorhees, and again another great scene, she explains the backstory of what happened to Jason.
Place again, there's been too much trouble here. Did you know that a young boy drowned the year before those two others were killed? The counselors weren't paying any attention.
So Jason was this child who was being looked after in the camp. He had deformities. He's been looked after by these counselors who were unfortunately off having sex, and he actually drowned in the pool in Camp Crystal Lake. Because of that, Pamela Voorhees went a little bit mad, ended up killing two counselors, and now has killed many more. But I gotta say, I do like every scene that she's in this movie. Yes, she is a little over the top. Betsy Palmer that played her, she very much played her very camp. She wasn't necessarily interested in the role. She was there for a paycheck, but by God, she gives a performance in this movie. She goes batshit crazy. She does go full metal on this movie. She goes balls to the wall, over the top acting, and I am here for it. And just to add another death to this list, the death of Pamela Voorhees, again, it is one of the best in the series. We have Alice, the final girl, who grabs an axe and decapitates Pamela Voorhees, and still to this day, the effects on that do hold up. It looks quite great, especially with the hands coming up and they're clenching the fists as her head rolls off. My flaws, guys, for this movie, there are not a lot of negatives I have. The acting is not the best. Obviously, you know, a lot of these older slasher movies, you look back on them today and the acting isn't the best. Generally, it's because the actors who are in these movies are actors who are just starting out. They're not getting paid too much, and they're just getting into the horror game and the acting game in general. One thing I did notice about the movie, it's just a small thing that I suppose I noticed compared to today, was there are a lot of scenes that are a bit strange in the movie. Towards the start of the movie, the character Annie gets a lift to Camp Crystal Lake halfway there by one of the townspeople, so Earl. There were a few parts in that movie where, I don't know, she was getting into a car and he like was for some reason just squeezing her butt as she got into the car. He was also looking at her kind of strange. Saying all that, guys, there again is not a lot of flaws in this movie. I am doing a review of every movie in the series, so I will be doing a whole series of this. I haven't watched a lot of the Friday movies in a long time. I've owned all of them since I've been maybe 10 years old, but I do want to rewatch them all again just to see if I like any others better than other ones. I've always loved, you know, Friday Part 6, Friday Part 4, obviously I think it's everyone's favourite, but I do just want to go through them and just see, has my opinion changed? Especially looking back now, Friday the 13th, the first one, I did not realise how much I actually loved this movie till I watched it again. So guys, keep an eye out on my other reviews for this movie. If I had to rate this movie, it would probably be about, you know, 3.5 out of 5. I would definitely say go see it. Is it one of the best slasher films out there? Yes. Does it have Jason in it, and will that kind of hurt the movie if you were a big fan of Jason Voorhees? Yes. You know, it doesn't have that big burly serial killer we all know and love, but it is a great introduction to the series, and it does set up all of the other movies that come afterwards. So definitely, guys, I would 100% recommend this movie if you haven't seen it already. If you have seen it, jump back and have a look at it, especially when it's summertime and you get that camp kind of feeling with it. So guys, that is my review for Friday the 13th. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like the video. Comment below if you want another video after this. I am working on Halloween 2018 next, so that will be coming up next. Beyond that, if you want a new video, let me know what you want me to review. If you want a ranking, let me know what you want to rank. And please hit the subscribe button below. I would really appreciate it. Till next time, Heidi ho.